Our topic this afternoon is called Study to Economize. And my name is Andy Humbert. This is a picture of our house or shop building this last winter. Is anyone familiar with that term, study to economize? It's found a lot in Ellen White's writings. And this is one of the references. It says, "Let everyone now strive with courage and activity to save rather than to spend, saying to those who are willing to consume without producing, it is my duty to economize in every line. I cannot encourage extravagance. I cannot let means go out of my hands to purchase that which is not needed. From the highest to the lowest, God's workmen are to study to economize. Let each one say to himself, I am to restrain in myself any inclination to spend means unnecessarily. Let those who work in God's service be producers as well as consumers. Look at the greatness of the work and restrain the unchristian inclination to spend money for self-gratification. Count the cost of the thing you desire to buy." To me, this is a matter of self-denial, giving things up that we don't need in order to further God's work. And there's many other references if you want to search her writings sometimes about study to economize. Here's an outline of what we'll be discussing. A little bit about myself, personal testimony. We'll talk about income versus expenses, God's counsel on debt, and some practical ways to save for your basic needs. This is a picture of a house that we had in Bremerton, which we lived in for 11 years. The problem was it was right in the middle of the city, which made it easy because I could just walk to work and I could save on fuel and time. But it wasn't really good emotionally or spiritually because we couldn't see nature. I have a degree in civil engineering, which is where I worked at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard for 12 years. During this time, we owned this house. We refinanced it twice and eventually paid it off. And I would recommend for those buying houses, if you have to get a loan, get a 15-year instead of a 30-year. I retired I put quotes, retired, at 35 years old, which was 6 years ago. And I put that in quotes because I still do odd jobs here and there, but it's by choice rather than necessity. Then in 2018, we sold almost everything to be missionaries in Chuuk, Micronesia. And we were there for 2 years. We came back due to COVID, shutting down the school. And then in June of 2020, we bought property in Mossy Rock, Washington. God gives some counsel on having debt, and debt is one of the big things that eats away our money. And we've been debt-free for, I would say, about 10 years, probably, with no debt of any kind. In Proverbs 22:7, it says, "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." And if you've ever had a debt that you have to pay every month, and you don't know where the money is coming from, you are like a servant or a slave to that. Romans 13:8, "Owe no one anything except to love one another." And then some Ellen White quotes. You had better live very humbly and keep a clear conscience. Owe no man anything, and you will not have so much perplexity. Live within your means. Shun debts as you would a great evil. It is much easier for you to slide into debt, flattering yourself with future success, than it is to realize your anticipations and free yourself. You should counsel with men who have made life a success and be guided by their counsel. If you would do this, you would save yourself great trials, and your course would be more pleasing to God. Shun the incurring of debt as you would shun leprosy. We do not wish to be dependent, and were careful to live within our means. We were resolved to suffer rather than get into debt. I thought it's interesting listening to some of Ellen White's stories, her personal reflections, and how they suffered without means in an effort to spread the gospel. Income and expenses. Let's look a little bit at interest. On the left side here, you see how interest can work against you, and on the right side, how interest can work for you. So looking here at an average 30-year mortgage, the current rate is at 7.01%. If you purchased a house for $500,000, over the 30-year life period or lifespan of that loan, you would pay $728,000 in interest, and a total of $1.228 million. A car loan, the average rate is 7.18% for a new car, 11.93% for a used car. So if you bought a $30,000 new car, you'd pay $7,000. This is a 6-year period. In 6 years, you'd pay $7,000 in interest. For a used car, a $10,000 used car, you'd pay $4,000 in interest. We have a friend, this example here, or someone we know. They bought an almost $500,000 house. It's actually 1/4 of a house, condo, for almost $500,000 because they were tired of paying $1,100 in rent. And so instead, they're paying over $3,000 in interest every month. So the thinking, you got to think about where that money's going. And in their case, they exchanged it for from rent to interest. Now, if you are able to save money, it can work for you. The current federal interest rate is 5.25 to 5.5%. So if you have $100,000 in savings, you can get $5,250 in interest per year, which is $437 per month. So just an idea, do all you can to get out of debt and then save up that money. And you don't have to put it in risky stock market, although, that can produce. But for me, I'm low risk. Most of my money is in savings or CDs, and that can get you a decent wage. Luke 14:28 says, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it?" My advice would be, especially for cars, houses, it's a little bit difficult to save up enough money to buy it in cash, but for cars, just wait till you have the money, and then you get what you can afford, and you don't have to worry about having enough money to pay those monthly bills. There's 4 types of households in this world. And the first one there is if you have a high income and a high expense. So if you have say $100,000 income, $90,000 expense, you can have a net income of $10,000, save $10,000 a year. Or number 2, high income and low expense. This is similar to where we were at when we lived in Bremerton before I retired. We didn't quite make that much money, but as an example, if you earned 100,000 and spent 50, then you can still save 50,000 a year. Number 3, which is close to where we're at now, low income, low expense. Income of 20,000 a year, expense of 10,000 a year, and you can still save 10,000 a year. And you might think that that's impossible, but our expenses are pretty close to about 10,000 a year. Number 4, if you have a low income and a high expense, and this is, I think, where a lot of Americans are in a similar situation, where their expenses exceed their income and they just go higher into debt, and you can never get out. Another thing to look at, time is money. Has anyone heard that saying before? Yes. Well, there's a limited amount of time every day to spend, and there's a limited amount of money that we have to spend. So it's a trade-off. Are you going to spend time to do things, or are you going to spend the money to pay for the things that you're going to do? Here's some examples of the trade-off. If you want some food, you can either spend the time to garden or grow fruit trees, to work on making food directly, or you can just go to the grocery store and buy it. So do you want to spend time, or do you want to spend money? Meals, you can do home-cooked meals, or you can go to a restaurant and buy it. Heat, you can do all the work involved in having a wood stove, preparing the wood for that, or you can just spend the money on electric heat from the grid. Materials, you can reuse materials, construction materials. If you're tearing something down, you can save those materials and rebuild, or get them from people that are throwing them away. Or you can buy new materials. Broken items, you can repair them, or you can buy new items. Andrew was just showing me this canning pot that had the leak in it. He said that he has repaired another leak that it had with JB Weld. And so, you can do things like that, or you can just buy a new item if you want to spend the money. School. You can do homeschooling. That's very time intensive. Or you can send your kids to church school and pay for the tuition for that. Here's some practical ways that I've thought of. One way is to prepare homemade meals. Choose ingredients that are in season. If you go to the grocery store, you can get the fruits that are imported that are not necessarily in season, and they're going to be twice as much as the fruit that's in season or more. So I like to just wait until that fruit is, or food is, in season, and you'll get it much cheaper. But still try to get the healthy ingredients. Choose cheap, healthy ingredients. Has anyone heard of what's his name? Financial Peace University. Dave Ramsey. He talks about beans and rice, which is a healthy. Those are healthy. It'd probably be good to throw a few vegetables in every once in a while. But if you're really trying to get out of debt and save up money, it wouldn't hurt to go on beans and rice for a while, and have a little garden to throw in some greens into that. Home can instead of using store-bought canned foods. Dried beans, you can can those. We haven't done that yet because we didn't have a pressure canner, but we do now, so we'll have to start doing some of that. Make your own bread. This is something that we do all the time. I use a bread machine, but the ingredients for a loaf of organic whole wheat bread are about $1 a loaf. and so maybe $1.50. But if you go to the store and buy Dave's Killer Bread or something, that's $5 or more. It takes time. So do you want to use that time to make it, or do you want to use your money to buy it? When you're going to work or traveling, prepare food ahead of time. You can forage for food, like was talked about earlier with the stinging nettle. Plant fruit trees. There's a picture of our garden, our fruit trees, our orchard that we're starting. We bought, I think we have 14 now, fruit trees that we bought for $12 a piece, 4 to 7 foot tall fruit trees. One of them's an apple tree, and it's already bearing fruit, and we just bought it a couple months ago. You can plant a garden. Water well versus city well. City water can be quite expensive. I think my mom is paying over $200 a month. That includes sewer, but whereas if you have a well, that water is basically the cost for the pump, to run the pump. Clothing. If you want to save with clothing, you can mend your damaged clothes. With the washing machine, you can use cold water instead of mixing with hot water. It may not get as much of the soil out, but they have pretty good detergents that work that are designed to work in cold water now. Use a minimum amount of soap. I know sometimes, especially in the front load, people use too much soap, and then it creates an odor in those front load washers. We use the top load. Or you can make your own soap. Like I think Patty talked about that last year. Drying clothes. This is something that we almost always do, is hang dry our clothes outside. We hang them along the fence of our garden to dry in the sun. Inside, in the winter, we were using the dehumidifier before we had our wood stove, but now we use the wood stove to dry our clothes. When you're looking at your house or your shelter, one of the big expenses can be heating in the winter. So to save money on that, you can use a wood stove. You can, if you have a view to the south, you can have windows put in to bring natural solar heat into your house. You can do solar electric heat, which if you have solar panels, you can set those up. Of course, they only work real well in the sun, but they do put off a little electricity during the winter. If you are using electric heat, you could look into getting a heat pump or a mini split. Those use as little as 1/3 the electricity as resistance heating, like a space heater or something like that, or an electric furnace. Water heating, you can heat things up on the wood stove. This is usually what we do in the winter time. When we have a fire going, we almost always have a big pot of water on there, and then when we take showers, we just dump it and use a ladle to take showers. An Asian shower. Natural solar water heating. We don't have this, but they do have these panels that black panels that water runs through and heats up the water. So that can be an option. We don't really get enough sun in the wintertime when you need it, but during the summer, that would be a good option. Electric water heating, this is what we use. That's that picture there. This is our water heater. It's a standard 40-gallon water heater. And I've got 2 switches right there, light switches. It's a 240 volt water heater, but I have it hooked up to 120 volt plugs there. And so it uses about 1/4 the electricity, which means it takes 4 times as long. But it uses about 1,000 watts of electricity. So this is what we use when we have solar power. Pretty much all summer long, we can have hot water from solar, starting from June through September. Even on a cloudy day, we'll get at least 1,000 watts from our solar panels. And you can even hook up a solar panel directly to a water heater. You don't need an inverter or anything. You have to match the resistance. And if you're interested in that, I can give you information. But you don't need anything else. You can just plug those wires in from the solar panels directly into your water heater. Some more practical ways with garbage. You can haul it to the dump instead of paying a monthly fee. I think ours is, in our area, I looked, it was $50 a month for a garbage service. And we make about like a little bag like this every week of garbage. And so it's just not worth it. So we just save that up and haul it. And it's like $15 for a load, $20 for a load. We use the paper from paper garbage for fire starter. We save that up. The metal we take to the recycler and we get paid for that. And then we haul the garbage to the dump. If you're looking at building a house, or if you have a house, the larger the house, the more expensive it is going to buy or build. And the more it is to heat and cool. And insulation costs more initially, but saves over time. So if you're trying to save money in the long run, add more insulation to begin with. Transportation. Fuel economy can be a big deal, especially when fuel prices are high. To save on fuel, you can get a smaller car. We use a Prius, and it's hybrid, so it gets better gas mileage. We're considering getting an electric vehicle that we can charge with our solar panels too. Then we wouldn't have to pay anything for gas. And then bundle as many errands as possible into one trip. I know Theomi, my wife, gets a little irritated sometimes that we have to do everything at one time, basically plan out a trip. We live about 45 minutes from main shopping areas, so when we go to town, we do a lot of things in one trip. And then get a utility trailer. If you don't have a truck, which I recommend, unless you are using it every day, you don't really need a truck. Just whatever vehicle you have, get a little utility trailer that would fit it, and you can haul what you need to haul. We brought a trailer here because we had 5 people in our car coming up here, and instead of 48 miles per gallon, we got 43 miles per gallon. Some more practical ways to save is getting some solar panels, which around here, the payoff period is quite long for solar panels because we don't get so much sun in the winter time. And our electricity is cheap up here in Washington. So, but it can give you some peace of mind too, and it's kind of fun to know that you're running off solar panels. We got used solar panels, and we have 20 solar panels there, and it was $1,200 used for 20 panels, 5,000 watts of power. For another savings could be your cell phone, using prepaid service versus postpaid, meaning like Straight Talk or Cricket. Those are prepaid. You pay ahead of time. Postpaid is like Verizon, AT&T. You're going to save money getting the prepaid ones. In fact, my phone is $7 a month. Buying used phones versus new phones. I bought a used phone 4 years ago, for $70, whereas the new phones I've seen some up to $1,000. And this goes back a little bit to the self-denial, where do you really need a brand new phone? At some point, the apps stop working, and so you might need to upgrade, which I'm getting to the point that I might need a new phone because some of my apps are not working, but it works for what I need it for. One other thing here is the self-denial box. Has anyone heard of that term, self-denial box? It's something that I haven't personally tried myself, but it's something that I've been thinking about and I just haven't done it yet. It's something that Ellen White talks about. And in fact, this quote here, Special Messages 397.1, talks about it. And the interesting thing is the title for this chapter is Awake, Awake, Awake. I just thought that was interesting. I didn't notice that until Andrew had given his talk this morning. But it says, "My brethren and sisters, you must be willing to be converted yourselves in order to practice the self-denial of Christ. Dress plainly, but neatly. Spend as little as possible upon yourselves. Keep in your homes a self-denial box, into which you can put the money saved by little acts of self-denial. Day by day, gain a clearer understanding of the Word of God and improve every opportunity to impart the knowledge you have gained. Do not become weary in well-doing, for God is constantly imparting to you the great blessing of his gift to the world. Cooperate with the Lord Jesus, and he will teach you the priceless lessons of his love. Time is short. In due season, when time shall be no longer, you will receive your reward." So when you go to the grocery store and you're tempted by some of those sweets or something, you can practice self-denial, and instead of spending that $3, you can put that into a box and save that money up and give it to a special mission project. Some other ideas, shaving razors. How many of you grew up seeing your dad or something use something like this? Or maybe does anyone still use these? Okay, yeah. So it's a double-edged razor. It's got a razor on this side and on this side. The razors are 10 cents each. They last me about a month. So I think about 10 years ago, I bought 100 of these and for $10, and I'm still using them. So that's one way. Toothpaste. You can use charcoal. You can even use it right out of the fireplace and smash it up. Oh, by the way, while I'm thinking about that, it's also good if you mix it with some water to clean the glass on the fireplace. Works really well. Internet service. Is that a need or a want? Some of you may have work needs that you need internet service for. But for us, we don't have internet service, except for on our phones. So we just go up the hill to check messages occasionally. Buy used items or get free. When we do have internet, when we go places, I'm always looking on Facebook Marketplace for free items or used items that I can use. And so that's a way to save some money. Mix your own hand soap. We got one of those foam things, and those foam mixers, you can, the foam pumps, you just add your own mixture in there, your own soap, either hand soap or dish soap. You don't need much, and it mixes it up with water. Concrete mix. Instead of buying those bags of concrete, you can get big dump truck loads if you have a big project, and mix your own. I'd always wanted to be in the country, but we also wanted to serve as missionaries. So it's like, why keep working when you don't have to? So, and if I do have to in the future, then I'll just go back to work. So, and if you've listened to Dave Ramsey and other people say, they would say you need millions of dollars to retire, which it all depends on how you want to live. If you want to live simply, then you actually don't need that much, especially if you don't have any debt. If you have some money saved up, you can live off that for a while.
To be aware of new videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.